the bond that Beck and Vivian have?
Well, Beck and Vivian are, two of my main characters, and they actually don't love each other very much. But they had a friend in common, Cassie, and when Cassie is killed, they don't really know what to do with themselves or their lives at this point. But because I write fiction, I was able to bring Cassie back, so she returns as a ghost, and she gets to tell her own story.
And I see that you tie it into the gun lobby and the firearm issue, because the person in the book that murdered her is her ex-boyfriend, who's the heir to a big fortune of a firearms company.
He is. And, these aren't easy questions to ask, and they're definitely not easy questions to answer. But I think we need to talk about the link between domestic violence and relationship violence and gun violence, and how often those two things come together. And we miss a lot of red flags all the time in relationships. We're not watching closely enough.
You bring up a very good point. A lot of these relationship issues that end up being domestic violence issues, if we just saw the red flags along the way, we could have stopped it. But what about this situation? Does Cassie let through her talkings let it be known that she should have saw the red flags and she missed them?
Well, in this story, Cassie did, and her friends did. So really, it's this broader conversation about, who wasn't listening to them, and why aren't we taking victims seriously when they say that they're scared. And a lot of the times we seek help, or we seek maybe a restraining order or something, but there aren't a lot of tools, especially for very young women, to use to get that help.
This book is about young women and the violence that is perpetrated on them, but it really goes to a bigger question, that this kind of violence, it knows no gender, really. Domestic violence, I know most of it is men violence on women, but when it comes to school shootings and all, even though he was going to shoot his girlfriend and all, as we've seen through history, school shootings know no gender or no rhyme or reason because of the collateral damage that happens in these shootings.
Absolutely. When you're talking about relationship violence, you have to keep in mind that, it can extend far beyond that relationship and end up hurting so many people. So it's really important that we listen to victims, that we take their fears seriously, and that we respond in real ways to what's going on, and, pay attention to those red flags when we have the chance.
You see domestic violence, you see, and when I was in college, there were some domestic violence issues that I saw firsthand. As adults, you see on the news, on the police blotter, so-and-so locked up for choking a strange girlfriend and stuff. But this is a problem that teenagers deal with quite regularly as well, that I think sometimes adults don't think, oh, it's puppy love. He'll get over being angry at you for breaking up with him, and he'll move on and you'll move on. Sometimes do you think we as adults don't take it serious enough in the realm of teenagers?
I do. I think we don't take it seriously enough for adults either, but especially with teenagers, I think it's easy to pass off these fears and some of these, worries that young women have. Especially when we're talking about, did they get a text that made them concerned? But really, we know from research that these things escalate. So we need to do a better job of listening early on.
When I saw this book and I went and did a little research on it and everything, I thought it was akin to, because it's a story about two people who come together that weren't the best of friends, but because they come together with one shared friend who was murdered, and they start painting murals all around town to tell the story and everything. But the police aren't real happy that they're painting these murals all around town and everything. It struck me as almost like one of my favorite books that I ever read was Pelham 123, and it was about a firefighter who couldn't get his just due, and his brother went around, putting his badge number out everywhere. These girls are really trying to give Cassie a voice through these murals all around town.
They are, and they're painting these illegal murals, and they're trying to start a conversation. And sometimes that means you have to make people upset and make them uncomfortable with the things that you're talking about. So it sort of goes into that zone of how do we bring attention to this issue? What actually draws people in? And when we're talking about violence, it's often sensationalized. So it was really important to me that I give the victim a voice in this. What happens when the thing you're most famous for was your murder? How unfair is that? So by bringing Cassie back, I got to let her tell her own story and sort of reframe that narrative in her favor.
And I think you did a great job to get the audience you're after, which is the young adult audience, to get them to come to these realizations, because you talk about how these girls' murals finally got an influencer, a podcaster in the area saw these and started talking about them on the podcast show, and that's where it really picked up momentum. And that's something teenagers today can understand, and that's the audience you're going after. And I thought it was great how you brought that into the book to really reach out and touch the strings of what teenagers today know and do in their everyday life.
Yeah, they're very engaged and they're very aware of what's going on, and they have all of these tools for telling stories. So, in this, using the podcast, I got to sort of tap into that idea.
Kyrie McCaully, she is the author of If Wings Could Fly, was her first book. Her sophomore book is We Can Be Heroes. Kyrie, tell people where they can go find the book, or where they can, if they want to go buy it, give us some places we can go find it.
Yeah, it's available in most bookstores and online book retailers. And, if any readers have questions for me, they can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Kyrie McCaully, or learn more about my books on my website.
I growing up as a kid, my sisters read Judy Blume books and everything, and it helped get us through puberty and everything. And this is the same type of books that you're writing now for teenagers today. It's much needed, and we appreciate your efforts to try to talk about sensitive situations, but talk about it so that teenagers can have a voice. Thanks, Kyrie, for all you do for that cause.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back after this timeout. Susan Schmitz in the building. She's going to tell us about a Toys for Tots drive. We'll talk about that next. 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, WOCA, The Source.
International Airport. This is WOCA AM, W242CA FM, Ocala, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
USA Radio News with Lance Pry.
The science at the Cleveland